the second keyboard.
Yeah.
All right, roll call.
Roll call. Ms. Alberts. Ms. Cooper.
Here.
Mr. Ferguson. Here. Mr. Hawley. Here. Mr. Janelli. Mr. Johnston. Here. Mr. Karat. Here. Mr. Matrino. Mrs. Molinaro.
Here.
Mr. Petrofessa.
Present.
Mrs. Robinson.
Here.
All right. Recognitions.
Plastics.
All right, Mill Ridge primary student. All right, guys, we're rolling. Emma Martini, first prize in the art contest. Could you guys come on up? Okay, tell us about
And Mom.
oh, wow.
Yay!
Take a photo.
Our bank will take that marijuana.
I'll give you the correct spelling of my name.
We tried.
Well, tell us a little bit about what the contest was and
This is from CW Services, where my dad works, and there was an art contest for bring your kid to work day, so they decided to do the art contest. So and then they decided that I won.
That was a good decision.
They decided that, weren't we?
Can you tell us about what you drew there? Tell us a little bit about it.
I drew the earth, me and my little brother, and my on this side, and then the two buildings my dad worked in, and there's my dad. This is an airplane flying down to here to get her some medicine, and then this man driving to our house to get us our medicine.
We were told that the dad was good. Something like on medicine.
My husband works for Cushman & Wakefield, which is an outsourced company on their Ingelheim property, and he's the account manager for logistics, the shipping and receiving and janitorial. So given that it's a huge pharmaceutical company that he's working with, and Emma and her brother happened to take a nasal spray made by that company, which they recognize the emblem. So that's why she included herself, and the UPS truck ran into her. Realizing that their headquarters are in Germany, and they do a lot of hazardous shipping and receiving. So his skill base for that is more complicated than you would think in the mailroom. So he does have to do a lot of overseas shipping and receiving and chemicals and all that kind of stuff. Plus, he's in the International Guard for New York State. He works at a Stewart Air Force Base, so he's a load master on the C-17 plane. So Emma had to throw a plane in there just for consideration, because it wouldn't be Dad if there was no plane in the picture. Right?
Why don't you hold these beautiful flowers you deserve?
Emma, what grade are you at?
Second.
Ah.
great job.
Very great.
Sounds good. Now we have to use that money for more art supplies.
For Miss Westmeyer?
Oh, don't tell her.
Actually, just another recognition that's not on the sheet. I want to recognize it's Administrative Assistant Day, so I want to thank Deb Warner. I know sometimes she watches.
She's watching. Everybody
Thank you, Deb.
Thank you for everything you do, and also Sandy Sanchez for documenting these lovely meetings. And also for Joe Martino for getting these microphones that finally work here for the meeting. Thank you, Joe. Only 2 years later, but thanks, I appreciate it.
Some of us have made much longer than that.
All right, public participation. Doesn't look like anyone's, so the only one that signed up were from Mill Ridge, and we did that already. So is there anyone that would like to speak in any of the back rows there? Anything? No? Going once? Going twice? All right, so thank you. All right, consent calendar, Mr. Hall.
Consent calendar. that the Board of Education approve the items on the consent calendar, Exhibits 17-49 through 1752, as recommended.
Seconded.
Seconded by Ms. Alberts. Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, carries. Okay, employee representatives, Spotlight Your School, Rogers Park Middle School.
There.
Come on up. Just introduce everyone that you have here with you.
Did you want to use this? Oh.
That's Fraser. Just here to introduce them.
So you're on or off?
Yeah, this should be quite a treat to get this going.
Well, while Mr. Duff is getting the video ready, I do want to thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about Rogers Park. We're just so very proud of all of the things that go on at our school, and it's nice to have an opportunity to brag a little bit about it. I promise it'll be a very brief presentation, though, because we recognize that you have many important things to do. I do want to thank Ms. Stevens and Mr. Duff for putting the presentation together, both gathering up video and interviewing staff about the various programs that exist at the school. I want to thank some of the teachers who came down, Nilda, Roseanne, our nurse, Randy, and Val, and Jessica, and also Sabrina, who came to support us. This is an easy job for me. I'm going to turn it over to Pat and Charlie, who are going to talk about Rogers Park.
Thanks, Pat. How do you summarize everything that we do into 3 minutes or less? But we'll do our best. Charlie's video is actually really going to be far more telling than what I have here, but just to get us started. I think you're all familiar with our community garden that we have at Rogers Park. So this year we expanded the academic focus of the community garden to include not only the science classes. Can I
He needs to read the work.
Oh, you need.
I'll get my phone if that's okay.
No.
Just one. That's it.
Yes.
We expanded the academic focus of the community garden to include the science classes from before, but this year we included health and world language classes. In all of the classes, we researched the 3 sisters, the squash, beans, and corn, and we all were involved in everything from the planting and maintenance of the gardens to the harvesting, drying, and preserving. We also researched culturally traditional dishes that were prepared with the squash, beans, and corn, and these were presented for consumption at our multicultural celebration. Our health teacher, Carrie Rowe, has for years had a wonderful relationship with the Women's Center here in Danbury, and she often brings them in to do presentations with our students about a full range of topics. And this year, Carrie was invited to speak to the Women's Center, and she had the opportunity to explain to over 300 people about the impact of the work that the Women's Center has had on our student body at Rogers Park, so that was very exciting. Every month at Rogers Park, our students are recognized as either Student of the Month, or they may be nominated for a Pro Award, which is people respecting others, and the criteria is basically the teachers, administrators, and any other staff nominate students for their hard work, their compassion, and their positive outlook. So they get announced, and they have a celebratory breakfast, and they all receive certificates, and they really are pretty proud of their work. Our guidance department this year has a student-run service program in which the students bravely go into the lost and found, and they collect all of the clothing, and they take it and they wash it and they organize it, and it's all very neatly put into a closet in the guidance department. And so there's clothing there available for students who may need something. And particularly, we found that our newcomers that come into the building may not have the appropriate winter attire. So maybe they need a sweatshirt or fleece or a jacket, and we're able to provide that for them very quickly. Our nurses have a wonderful club after school, or the girls support school, that focuses on socialization and life skills. They've done things like cooking, planting gardens, they have facials, all those important things, and they form friendships. And the environment is positive and safe, and they're able to talk about things that relate to middle school young ladies in a very safe environment. And it's very well received, and I know that the nurses, if they could double the size of the club, they would, because they have that many people that are interested in it. And our Hispanic parent meetings continue to be very well attended. Their children and their academics are our particular focus, but we've also expanded the scope to include community topics. For example, Children and Family Services was able to do a presentation at our last meeting. And we're looking forward to topics to speak about next year, to have speakers about next year, and I think we already have more topics than meetings planned. So that's really continuing to be another success. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Charlie.
You want to do it?
Yeah. We should do
Let me just go to that slide.
Okay.
Good evening. You might remember me from last year. I did a little look into our Learning Commons initiative and what we have so far at Rogers Park. I'm here to give you a little bit of an update of what's going on here at our school and a little bit of sprinkling of what's going on at the other two middle schools as well, a combination of all three. The biggest thing that, the biggest push we've had this year is the virtual reality that we've introduced at Rogers Park. Maybe you've heard of it, maybe you've seen the commercials, the big goggles that you wear over your head. We're not that fancy, but we've got some very affordable pieces that we have acquired. Thank you, Dr. Glass, for help with that. And we have started using that in some classes. We've started a checkout system for that. And it's been very successful and very exciting. The kids are having a wonderful reaction to it. It's really been a wonderful thing so far. So that is the biggest Learning Commons push initiative we've had so far this year with that. Some other things, we've included a flat screen welcome display, television, flat screen, where we have updated promotions and announcements that we have. Should we update that? That's always nice, always a welcoming feature when they come into the media center. Tournament of books, we do that every March, and this round has been very exciting. We kind of commemorate the basketball tournament and add an element of promotion of independent reading, and that's been another success this year as well. You can see that in the third little picture there, the bracket that we have. So the boys and the sports fans get a kick out of it, and we have a lot of voting, which is pretty good. We are working our best in our media center to update our collection and to weed out some of the old books, and we've been acquiring some new books through Donors Choose, through donations, through our budget, and we are working towards that, which is great. As we transition towards the Learning Commons, we are doing more and more tech-savvy initiatives, virtual reality. As you know, the robotics club we are starting, sponsored by my coworker, Ms. Benson, who can be here tonight. She is mentoring a group of students to do robotics. We have some robotics kits that we've acquired, and we're very excited about that as well. So, across all three middle schools, you know, the common phrase that's been going around, fake news, we are kind of taking that to heart, and one of our key elements in our media classes is talking about evaluating resources and recognizing how to pinpoint, you know, truths and facts, and that has been a continued part ever so now with our media classes. And we have been awarded, I know that you guys gave the okay with that, and thank you, for a large-scale color printer that will be housed at Broadview, and we will be able to utilize it between all three middle schools. So, again, I thank you so much for your support and your thoughts going forward with the Learning Commons initiative. It's truly an exciting thing. I know Dr. Glass is a big fan of it, and we look forward to working step by step to really making that happen. So virtual reality is this year, that's our big thing, and next year I'm excited to see what comes down the pipe. Right? There's technology coming out left and right all the time, so let's see what happens. So,
Yeah.
made a little video encompassing what we've done at Rogers Park. You'll see virtual reality soon.
project learning that's going to be taking place, so every student will be participating. We did it as part of a history day that you saw. That was last year's. This year, we're just getting ready to do it. We had such a huge success that we had to split it into multiple days because we just had too many people that day coming into the building. So we're going to do multiple nights so that parents can come and see the work that the students have been doing. It is very well planned through the social studies department, and the teachers that you saw were social studies teachers. They are heading it, and we're really looking forward. We'll let you know the night, so if you would like to come and see the work that our students are doing. It was quite impressive last year, and we're expecting it to be just as well done this year. And I just can't thank Charlie and Pat enough. They're always our go-to people when we need something like this, and they're always willing to help out, and our children are very fortunate to have the two of them at our school. So thank you to both of us.
It's nice that you thanked everybody, but I would like to thank you. I'm sure the rest of us would also. Every day you know these people are.
Thank you. Yes.
The board kept saying what's going on in the magnet, remember? What goes on with the project-based learning, the transfer of that kind of work, kind of for your own back.
All right. Student representatives. Hi, how are you?
Thank you, Pat. Good night.
Thank you, guys.
Good night. Dr. Throman, her group would like to leave, it's okay.
They need to get them to bed, and the teacher has to get up to them.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Just take a check.
Just take the check and run, get it. You need a couple more zeros.
Rachel.
Hi everyone, I'm Sam Mortera, the student representative from Danbury High School. Just to go over a few recent events, we just had our very first Unified Prom. Although I didn't attend personally, I've been involved in the Unified program. I went to King Street and Broadview, and I'm so happy that it's getting more involved with Danbury High. Our peer leadership projects, which is our class we have at Danbury High, it's seniors, and they're just wrapping up a few of their community exchange projects. To name a few, they held an ALS golf tournament, a middle school leadership program, and one of the most well-received was a campaign called BU. It was done by two students, Peter Chavez and Jay Danzy, and the rest of the class helped out. They set up like a booth in the cafeteria, and they had a whiteboard that said what makes me unique is, and you could go and write what made you unique with your friends, and you could take a picture. And if you wanted that picture to be on the BU like Twitter page, it would go on there. And every day, towards the end of the day, they made an announcement during 8th period with a quote about individuality or disability. So that was a really well-received campaign. For upcoming reminders, we have graduation is on June 19th at 5 p.m. All members of the board are invited. We have junior prom this Friday, April 28th, and senior prom, May 26th. An update on the construction, the building's going up. There's a lot of nice progress going on. From a student standpoint, they do have some concerns about the track and the quality of the tennis courts due to the construction. So last week, we held a survey and advisory. This was initiated by Mr. Donovan. He just wanted some feedback on what's going on in the school from the students. So we asked them like if there's any changes they'd like to see, any recommendations. And then that went to the Board of Governors, which I'm on. We separated all the feedback into different categories. Most common were the bathrooms, the food, and the safety advocates. We had a few freshmen who said they'd like some air fresheners in the hallway, but for the most part, they fall into those two categories. Next time, we would have a space on there where we ask them what is going well, because we have a lot of students return the paper just like, everything's great, but we'd like it to be a little bit more specific. But that was initiated by Mr. Donovan, and then the Board of Governors kind of handled the rest of that. And lastly, Teacher Appreciation Week is next week, and Board of Governors has planned something special for every teacher, one day for the whole week.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Ace, that's not here. Presentation by Kim Thompson. you need us to,
That's on.
they all work, they all work.
Yeah.
Look good.
All right, so it's up behind you, I'm gonna scoot around. This is more or less the same presentation that was in your packet. And Dr. Sell actually asked if I would just take some time to talk with you some more about where we are with the hiring process. And you know that for right now, we're in a bit of a holding pattern as we wait to see how the budget evolves. But we do anticipate that we every year have between 40 and 50 folks who leave for whatever reason, lots of retirements. So we anticipate always doing some hiring. So you'll remember back in the fall that I talked with you a lot about the demographics of who we hired, where these kids came from, and this is intended to show you kind of where we're headed next. All right. So just to take a quick minute, revisiting where we were in October, when I gave you the last hiring report with specific numbers. We had a couple of goals, or I had a couple of goals established in that slide presentation for you. One was continue to expand the network of teacher prep programs that include minority applicants. And I put that in blue because that sort of is one category, and then the others in green I see as a second category, which is more of the grow your own type initiative. So first one is to look outside the district and see who's out there as candidates. And the green bullets, fund and expand, grow your own teacher initiatives through the existing WestCon pipeline. Continue to work with the State Department of Education initiatives in order to enhance the teacher prep programs that are out there. And then using the culture of competency trainings we've talked about as a way to enhance the working environment for our existing employees. So those goals we have had since the spring and early fall and use them to reflect back on who we've hired, and they're driving the discussion of where we go from here. So far this fall and winter, here's where we've been. With regard to on-campus recruitment and looking at the pool of folks who are out there, Dr. Sell and I attended the Historic Black Colleges and Universities Forum at Yale that was in December. And that was, I think you might recall me speaking a little bit about it. It was an incredibly rich forum in which we talked a lot about who's out there, how do we get to them, how do we get to those candidates. And from that meeting and the connections that we made there, we looked at a much broader list of potential recruiting sites. I evaluated over 35 different programs, and I was looking at whether these schools had solid teacher prep programs, their geographic location, and what kind of recruiting we could do there. Do they have virtual fairs, job fairs? Can we post on the web? Really intended to cast the net much wider than we had been, all the while paying attention obviously to costs and you know, the price involved in sending folks far and beyond to recruit. So looking for effective ways to do that without spending a terrible amount of money. This year, we have expanded greatly the participation that we've had in these educator job fairs. We've sent 15 different administrators to 10 different locations. Some will be familiar to you and some are new to the list. UConn, the NAIC school, we always have tremendous success with the kids coming out of that prep program, and we continue to see that as a rich place for us to find candidates. WestCon and University of Bridgeport, we have established working relationships with some of their kids. We get interns from those places. Similarly, we send a lot of our kids to those prep programs. So again, building that pipeline. Southern and Central are new to the list to us, not necessarily new in terms of exposure, but those are two places that we are looking at for different kinds of applicants, speech and language folks, PPS staff, and those are places that tend to provide those kinds of candidates that in a greater way than some of the other places we've looked. And since those are areas we're still looking to hire into, we've added them to the list. And the College of New Rochelle, which we started kind of in baby steps with them a couple of years ago, and this year we deployed 2 different administrators down there to really talk with those kids. A similar demographic to here, and a nice teacher prep program, so we are trying to continue to expand our relationship with them. This year we attended 4 new HBCU sites in particular, CUNY Medgar-Evers, Delaware State, University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, and Howard. I think many of you know Terrence Cunningham is an alum of Howard and has a rich connection with them. So we're trying to, again, build on those connections that we've already got and try to find some new places. These four were identified really because they were showcased at the HBCU forum in the fall. They have solid educational programs, and geographically they're in a place where we think we may have a good shot at encouraging kids to come to Connecticut. Once we attend those fairs, we've really tried to enhance what we do with the information. So back in the day, you'd go to a fair, you'd meet some kids, and you'd say, please, go on AppleTrack and apply. This year, we really tried to be a little bit more deliberate about it, and we sent administrators who had real ideas of what kinds of positions they were looking to fill, and they were trying to really make a little bit deeper contacts with kids at these programs. So when they came back, we put together some lists of kind of high flyers that we wanted to target right away, kids that were likely to get picked up from other districts right away because of their credentials and their successes. And so at the elementary level, we sent out an email from central office saying, hey, we really enjoyed meeting you, we'd like you to come back and do a demo lesson for us. Secondary and PPS staff got quick looks at resumes before they had even applied in AppleTrack. And then we're going back through now to match and follow up and see whether those kids have actually followed through to apply. So we're trying to really kind of identify some candidates and really do some work to bring them in. Outside of the scope of the job fair, we also have been looking a lot at where we post openings, and we've done some work through our application webpage, through AppleTrack, on trying to identify where people are finding us, where do they see our jobs. The non-certified folks see a lot from Indeed or more general job sites. Many folks see us through more education-tailored websites, and that's where our postings tend to be. We thought this year it made sense, since we were doing some visiting of some of the HBCUs, to access their webpage. So they have a webpage that goes out to all of their students and alums, and so we posted some of our target jobs on that webpage in an effort to become more visible. We also have started to participate in a program through AppleTrack called Handshake, where our postings, once we post them to our site, they shoot out to over 120 other schools and sites. We've also enrolled in Top School Jobs, which is the web version of the national publication Ed Weekly and their job sites. And we continue to review the local sources that are out there, local trade papers, newspapers, to see if there are appropriate places for us to be posting openings. And lastly, it probably shouldn't necessarily be last, but one of the things that I felt strongly about was to do a more thorough job of trying to describe who we are and what we do here. I think it's easy sometimes to put the flyers out. We now, on our pages, we try to show some sample articles that, Danbury is one of the top places to live, some current event kind of things, but also to put out for them some of the curriculum books that we're using, some of the programs that we're implementing, like working with TC, the Teachers College, in an effort to show students and applicants that this is a place where we do some really good hard work, and that you can have a very rich experience here as a teacher, but also as a learner. And so we're trying really to focus on that as we go out and advertise. Now turning to, if you remember on the first page, those green bullets. It seems that most places, most recruitment organizations and educational institutions are focusing on this notion of growing from within. That this idea of casting your net far and wide kind of only gets you so far. And in Connecticut, we honestly do tend to lose a lot of kids to urban districts along the coast, where they're things like metropolitan the city, where they have a different lifestyle than here in Danbury. And so we're trying to figure out not only in kind of increasing our exposure, but how do we grow from within. And I've been doing a lot of work with the NE Danbury, with Sam Buck in particular, talking about how do we do that? How do we implement more of an internal growth program? The NEA sent a representative, actually was Sam in this case, to the Virginia Education Association's Teachers of Color Summit in the winter. And Sam and I talked a lot about it, and most districts are focusing on this. How do we get our own students, and maybe even our own employees who are not certified already, to think about teaching as a career? And that's a little bit longer track for us in terms of recruiting folks in, but one that I think is very important. New York has had some success with it. Some other districts are starting to go in that direction. So we've been looking at what we can do to try to feed on that. I went to the State Department of Education winter convening, which because as an Alliance district, we go to these meetings periodically with the State Department, and the head of the talent development ran some subgroups, and one of them was on this Yancey forum that I think I may have mentioned to you before. Again, it's an existing cohort of teachers and administrators who gather together periodically to talk about their career path, whether it's aspiring to be administrators, whether it's aspiring to teach in a different area. And it's meant to be a place for them to talk about their experiences in their own districts and to craft solutions for advancement or bringing others into the profession. So we're looking at how we can designate with the NEA, in collaboration with them, a handful of teachers, maybe some administrators, to start to participate. And these cohorts go on for years. And so part of the panel discussion was talking with these people who've been participating about what it means to them to be young educators, to be educators of color, and how are they working with each other to try to enhance their own experience and find new paths for themselves. So I'd like to try to send some of our folks starting next year to those forums. And then turning attention to how to grow our own Danbury Public School students. The Minority Recruitment Pipeline Project, we've sort of done in fits and starts the last few years. It's been dictated largely by funding sources. We had some great money that came in from the State Department of Education a couple of years ago when the program was born. And we got a lot of recognition for it. It's a program that, in a nutshell, takes a handful of kids from Danbury High School, enrolls them in some classwork at WestCon, and then gives them a summer teaching opportunity. I think we've done it at Ellsworth in the summer school. It gives them a place to really try out the things that they've learned and try to explore whether or not teaching is something that they're interested in. I am exploring with WestCon in particular how to expand that program. We have only a handful of kids in it now, and it looks like we may be able to raise it to as much as 40. And one of the things that I talked with Dr. Sal about is this could actually be another idea for a career pathway for kids, much like we talked about with the Biosciences Academy at the high school, with DECO, and giving kids some exposure to this notion of teaching as a career. What really needs to happen to make that successful is we need, I think, to spend some time on launching this idea of a Student Teachers of America group or something like that, so that at the middle school level particularly, and moving into the high school years, that this is a profession that we get different groups of students that are interested in, and we start to build it as a way for them to get the certification they need, and one day come back to us as teachers. And I know we've had some experience and some success actually in very anecdotal situations, and the goal is to try to expand this program for some of our kids as an option. And lastly, the other place that I think is rich for us to look at for growing your own teachers is in our non-certified workforce. Right now we have about 500 bargaining unit members in the paraprofessional and tutor union. One large category of them are instructional paraprofessionals. Those are the folks who go and work with small groups on literacy instruction, or they go and work with ESL kids. And they have some real skills that we have tried to build through professional development with them. And those are the folks who I think may be good candidates to talk about becoming certified staff eventually. So one of the things we did this fall was we went back through and we looked at the qualifications of folks that currently sit in that bargaining unit. And there are quite a few of them that not only have bachelor's degrees, some of them have advanced degrees, but also many have associate's degrees and can, in a very short time, build enough credits to get the bachelor's and ultimately be eligible to pursue teaching as a career. So we heavily promoted what was a REST, our Educational Association program, in February for ARC, the Alternative Route to Certification. That was a forum that was sponsored again by the REST. And folks were able to come and ask questions about how do you go through the alternative route for certification? What does it cost? Is there scholarship money available? How do I get into a program like that? And how can I complete it while still trying to hold down full-time employment, which for many of our folks is essential. So many of them, we had a lot of feedback, and many of them attended that. And one of the things we're trying to do, and I actually was emailing with them again this week, is to promote that the deadline for applications for this year is in September. If you'd like to do a forum here and bring some folks from the State Department in to talk with you, we would be more than happy to do that so that we can start to mentor some of these folks and encourage them to go ahead and proceed down this path of getting their certification through an alternate route. And again, we're backstopping that with really trying to expand the PD that we do for this non-certified staff on the professional development days. They have up to 3 a year, and Kelly and I have actually done a lot of work on some online training for them, some in-house training for them, so that on those days, it's not just a kind of watching some mind-numbing presentation, but actually sort of engaging them with skills that they either need for their current job or skills that they could acquire in order to advance within their department. So that's sort of the internal professional development. And then the last piece really, if you think about this as, outreach for new folks to come to the district, increasing participation and trying to push their existing workforce and students along the path. The last piece really is the community outreach and retention issue. So retention, I've talked with you before, I don't know that we have really dramatic retention issues. I do a lot of exit interviews with folks as they go to if they go to other districts. We have a lot of retirements. But one of the things that Dr. Salmon talked a lot about is implementing a survey for those people who are leaving in order to do online. So lots of people may not want to talk to me, or they go in and just tell their administrator they're leaving without more information. So we've put together, I want to say it's like an 8-question survey, and survey monkey. It's easy to send out to anybody certified and non-certified, and we have 2 different surveys. And then it's easy for us to kind of compile data and allow me an opportunity to follow up with some folks about the reasons why they're leaving. And we're looking at things like, is it just income, is it just salary in another district? Is it opportunities for advancement? Is it quality of mentoring that you're getting now, or quality of training? So those are the kinds of questions that we're trying to get at in a quick survey that we hope people can fill out kind of on the fly as they're leaving. We've also really worked hard in the retention issue to expand the benefits network for all folks. So I know we've talked in the past about tuition assistance from certain schools. So Westcon and University of Bridgeport, I think both offer tuition, 10% or some kind of a discount on tuition that our folks take in classes there. There are all sorts of federal loan forgiveness programs and mortgage forgiveness programs or assistance programs because we're an alliance district. And a district in need of improvement. So those kinds of things are all things that we try to make available, try to do a better job in HR of making that information available to folks. It also includes, there's some closing cost abatement with a program we have with Ravis, health and wellness sessions, and local perks, things that are local community discounts, just things that we're trying to show to our workforce that we're trying to give them some more opportunities that they can take advantage here. And the degrees not in debt, I put in there just as a reference, CEA, NEA Danbury is really working hard to have information sessions with their teachers in particular to talk about some of these programs. So the teachers are aware of how they can participate in some of these programs that they may not otherwise be aware of. And that's in keeping with this general effort we've made to continue to keep our marketing materials updated and continue to establish community connections so that we can continue to broadcast the good work that we're doing and why we think this is a good place for people to work. Timelines for hiring. So we've already in shortage areas, and especially in classrooms where we know we need to have teachers, we've started the process of doing some screening. A lot of our postings are already up, and so some administrators have already begun the process, particularly in shortage areas. I know special education, language arts specialists, library media. There's a host of them where we historically have had trouble really filling those with good certified candidates. So we've tried to do some early screening on those. And with the administrator vacancies, as I believe you're all aware, we now have a secondary assistant principal vacancy, but we also have 3 elementary principals open. We have 3 who are departing. That's at the Magnet School at AIS, at Shelter Rock School, and at South Street School. So those 3 positions we'll be working to fill for the fall. I've been working in each building faculty to try to establish the committees with faculty participants. And I've been working, or I'm going to continue to work with Ralph on getting volunteers for you all. I think we'll need one more since we're going to do the elementary positions on the same day or in close succession. So those vacancies will be ones that we'll look to fill sooner rather than later. The South Street one is the new, obviously the newest one that just went up for posting on Tuesday. We've already got, I would say 12 or 15 folks who have applied for that. We're into the 20s now for the magnet school, and Shelter Rock, which has been posted for the longest, we have about 60 applicants in there. So we're in the process now of whittling down those pools, and some are folks that we have been impressed with in the past who are continuing to look for opportunities here. Others are internal, others are folks that are new to us. So we're dead in the thick of that now, and hope to have those panels going by the middle of May so that we can have a decision to you by the end of May. And that's what I do in my spare time. Anybody have any?
Jim, so grow your own.
Yeah.
Can we or do we? Can we somehow tie into DHS alumni?
Sure.
In terms of, okay, who graduated 4 years ago and went the educational route? You know, to go out and, you know, and say, hey, you know, you're coming back home kind of thing?
Yep, I think it's an excellent idea. And I think that should be fairly easy to do. We can,
Right.
you know, we can certainly run lists of recent graduates. I don't know how much information we gather about where they are,
Right.
but I certainly should work with the high school to do that. I think that you're right. I think it's part of that push to really look at those DHS kids and agree with them.
Right. Right. And then administrators, is that norm, 60 applicants per job posting, or is that?
It really varies. I gotta be honest, it varies. We've had some years where we've had 10 or 12. We've had other years where we've had 40 or 50. I think it's a reflection of what's going on around us in the state.
The population.
I think a lot of districts are looking now at cutting back, and there are a lot more folks in the pool than we've seen in the past. So I think it's a mix. There's a lot of overlap too, and I think some of it may be that not everyone who applied in the first, you know, the Shelter Rock opening has seen that there are 2 more. So a lot of it will be, I think, overlap in the end.
What do we have for number of retirees so far? Has there been
17.
17 already?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Is it too early to start talking about DHS hiring as far as for 18, 19 because of the, you know, once the new ground breaks, the new classrooms open?
Probably.
Okay.
We're doing the new hiring of existing slots at DHS. We're also doing half of the department heads again this year because they're on a 2-year cycle. So they're hopping pretty well right now at the high school with filling those spots. But I think certainly my experience with them is they are looking earlier and earlier. And what they're doing, I think they're doing very well, is they're establishing connections with folks that they may have room for right now, but they're trying to stay in contact with. So I think they've gotten a lot better at that as well. But that's going to be a challenge for us. 18 months.
Anyone else have any questions?
What is the first step for a non-certified position to want to become certified? What should they do?
So there's a couple of different things, and it depends. ARC is certainly, the alternative route to certification is certainly a great option. It requires, though, to look at content areas, so they won't certify special ed and they won't certify elementary teachers. So that's not a resource for them. But that's certainly one route for those who, let's say you were a math major in college and you want to pursue teaching math. So that's a great program. It's quick, it's a lot of summer work, and then there's a kind of like an internship period or an experiential period, and then they have certification, and obviously they take the tests and that kind of thing. So what I encourage those folks to do, anybody that thinks they have a bachelor's and they think that they might be interested in that, is to reach out to the State Department of Education to have them take a look at transcripts. And they will do that, particularly as they slow down a little bit. They will happily work with folks to look at what's in their transcript and what might be the quickest route for them. I know probably with some of our special ed folks, we've had conversations with several of them about maybe trying to get a master's in special education, which is a quick route in. I don't know if you want to talk about that at all.
Sure. Yeah, many people that hold a teacher certification already can go back and usually in 1 year can get a dual certificate in something like special education. So I know that we occasionally have, this is more with our paraprofessional people, that we seek to be employed with a certificate. So we have assisted them and usually guarantee placement for student teaching, which a lot of the times is part of the difficulty or challenge. So we need to work with them and provide them with experience here in the district. In my past few years, we've hired 3 of them into certified teacher positions. Teach for America is also, we hired several years ago a candidate who came out and had a bachelor's degree, and I can't recall off the top of my head what it was in, but went back and did a program. It's a 2-year program where you're kind of guaranteed locked into teaching in certain areas, but then come out with certification. So you kind of teach and gain your certification all at the same time.
The message we're really trying to send across the district is we'd like to work with you if you have an interest. Come see us. You know, we can help look at transcripts, put you in touch with the right people, and see what we can do to help facilitate that. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, get the message up.
Anyone else? Okay, when did the South Street, when did that come out?
Tuesday.
As in yesterday?
Oh, okay, today's Wednesday. Yes, yesterday.
Just yesterday.
Just yesterday. Maybe that's like something's happened.
All right. Thank you, Kim. Action.
That the Board of Education approve the revisions to the 2016-17 school calendar in accordance with Article 17-53.
Second.
Second by Ms. Malera. So I just wanted to, you can give us a 2-second.
When we had our conversation last week, I thought it was a conversation and discussion. If you want to push it out, it's fine too. We can do that. But let me tell you what we did. I did get something from Dave Matrina, who said that some of the stated goals that we have is, and I'm going to put this in the minutes, yes, for that to happen, is to increase contiguous days of instruction, which is true. And another goal is to create a pattern of dismissal. The feeling is the way the system currently is it is a little more irregular, and we'll talk about that. There are some hiccups in the schedule, trying to create contiguous days, which causes more weeks to have interruptions. We also looked around us, maybe for next year because of the special circumstance, would the board consider a few other items that are optional. There are what we call commemorative days that we're permitted to have school. And Rosh Hashanah, you want to consider that, we'll consider Columbus Day, which is another commemorative day. Veterans Day is a commemorative day. And then one day for President's Day weekend. These are just some Dave's suggestions. We did call around, right, Bill? Yes. Just because we were asked, what are we doing around? And what we found out, typically, other than a switch between Veterans Day, another day, I think in Newtown, most folks had off the Jewish holidays and Columbus Day. Right? Veterans Day, yeah, is Newtown's the only one that's going to school Veterans Day?
We checked with 9 districts around us or who were similar to us, such as Norwalk, Stanford, and then the surrounding districts, and 7 of the districts had Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur off. 6 had Columbus Day off, and 5 had Veterans Day off. One of the things that we just wanted to share with the board, a number of years ago, there was, maybe Mrs. Cooper might remember, there was conversation around possibly having school on Veterans Day and doing a commemorative event in each school. And part of the conversation was that we thought this might be a more respectful way of recognizing veterans. They actually have kids in school as opposed to going to the mall where they're going. A representative group of veterans did come to me and they said, we don't think this is a good idea. We think it's disrespectful to veterans. So our reason for sharing this is if you all choose to go down that path, we would strongly encourage you to have a group come in and talk it through. The other thing with this, we also had a number of rabbis come in 10 years ago, and they said, we have Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. There are many other Jewish holidays where we consider doing that. But the pushback was we think we would lose too much instructional time, but we are recognizing the 2 highest holy days of the Jewish calendar, and they felt that that was a good compromise. So again, if the board wants to go down this route and just suggest that there's gonna be some homework that needs to be done with different groups of individuals.
Kelly, you on the committee of the Tuesdays, why we rearrange? The Tuesdays, by the way, I mean, it's kind of substitute in terms of that, trying to do substitute in those issues and use the after-school time to do some of the work that they typically do during the release time.
Sorry, let me, before Kelly. So all the stuff that you're telling us, we need that memo that you sent us.
Yeah, this came from.
Yeah,
this came
David,
from-
he sent it to
Yeah.
everyone. You responded in the memo, which is great. So if anyone has any specific questions, let's ask those. I don't think you all have the information, so just bottom line at what we're saving as far as days, maybe we sent it out.
The last day of school is the 15th. We eliminated the 20th, so we had one less day there. We eliminated the day before Thanksgiving, we made that a half day was the recommendation. And we kept the one day, we're still starting after Labor Day, and we have one day for PD the Friday prior to that Monday. So we made those we did all of those. If we do that, and the board accepts that, we're off on the 15th with no snow days, not very likely. However, if we use the days that we have, the last day is the 22nd. The way we've done it. So we reduced it from the week before by making those reductions. So we gained a few days.
Now, not that I want to turn anybody off or, the days thing, we all saw it. And I just wanted to get the bottom line for us, and if anybody had any questions individually about it, we could ask it now, they can answer it instead of going into a whole lot.
I just have one quick question. The April 16th to 20th is for those regional PD and vacation required dates. The green blocks on that, what is that?
That's the regional calendar that was agreed upon at the state level. Anytime you see a green block, it means the thinking behind it is that for a small district to bring in a presenter for $2,000, they can't do it. But if 4 or 5 districts get together, they can afford it. For a district the size of Danbury, it's kind of a moot point. But the smaller districts went to the state and said, how can we amalgamate our resources? So the state came out with required dates that we have to recognize. And so the April vacation is across the board. Everybody has that week off.
Oh.
In our region.
In our region.
Gotcha.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion?
Yeah, is there any way to move Pete? So I'm looking at September, and kind of pretty choppy when you tie in the 2 PD days on the 19th and 26th. Is there any way to move those into August?
No, those aren't PD, those are dismissals.
Right, but
No, we're not school months.
so why early dismissal of the 19th and 26th?
Okay.
September.
Again, I'll go back to, those are the Tuesdays, 1 hour dismissal tied into the 3 hours.
Right.
2.5 hours.
No, understood.
For that work.
Understood, but again, if David made a recommendation, and I kind of have to agree with him as far as that, the continuations, that, you don't want the breaks, and especially early in the year. So, again, my question is there any way to move the PD day, early dismissals of the 19th and the 26th, so that it's a full day, and then basically, it's...
Well, the answer is yes, but the answer is yes. We eliminate it every year, but this year. And the reason why we have September is simply because there are assessments that are done and things that the teachers have to do for planning purposes. And the committee had recommended that we have those 1 hour dismissals. Now, when we did it the first few years, we didn't have September, you may recall.
Right.
We just we did it now because of the what we call the benchmarking and the assessment.
Part of the work with the committee is that we were talking about, we do a lot of, as Dr. Ansel had said, a lot of benchmark assessments. And if we don't have those early release days in September, it doesn't allow the teachers really time to sit down and work with the data to appropriately provide interventions for kids that need it and extensions for those that are above. And the next time that we have that extended early release time would be would be halfway through October. So it really puts the teachers at a disadvantage. The first time they can sit down and really talk about working together in small groups to help with our YBs and range of learning would be, 6 weeks, 7 weeks into the school year, which is concerning, which is why the committee that had met, we understand, that having less hours in the school day can be a disadvantage, but we felt that the 1 hour, typically, particularly at the elementary level, the students are missing a lot of the times more of their elective or special area classes, still getting their core academic instruction, and the benefits of the time for teachers to work together to put solid plans in place for kids was the most important.
So this data review, is that based on the previous year's academic or 10 days into the school year?
Every student takes them within the first few weeks of the school. So when you come back, because what we find is that we use kind of a two-prong approach. We use the data of the assessment towards the end of the year, or the state assessments that are going on now. And then we also use the information, they take a reading and a math benchmark assessment, and then some writing assessments as well. And what we're finding with many of our students is the way that they leave us in June and the way that they return in September is different. And so it's really important to get that update. This year we did assessments on some of our younger grade levels within the first week of school, and we also felt that that was very early. So this would also give us the chance to allow the first week of school no testing of kids, the second week of school where we start to assess them, and then by the third week when we met, we would have the data to put plans in place for them.
I just want to add one more thing to Mr. Holly's question. We've never had this before. We added it in, which is unique for us. We're trying to have more contiguous time. We found a significant breakdown in our organization through the Teacher Evaluation Committee. That blue box on the 29th is the day that teachers set their performance goals to improve their own performance. They didn't have the data. They were flying blind. And so this gives them those 2 one-hour release sessions to analyze the data, not only for what Kelly talked about, but also to identify where they have to focus for their own professional growth. And then their growth plans that their administrators approve are based on those metrics.
Any other questions? So seconded by Captain Malnero, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? No, okay.
You're excited now. We're bringing to your calendar to you next time we can talk about it, some of these things as well. So they'll be coming to you. Thank you.
That the Board of Education approve the Board of Education meeting notes from 2017-18 school year in accordance with Article 17-54.
Second.
Second by Ms. Alberts. Any discussion? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? Abstentions? No? Okay. Okay.
That the Board of Education accept the March 2017 operating results analysis general fund in accordance with Article 17-55.
Seconded by Mr. Johnston. Any questions?
Joe, if I could. We've got 5% built into budget 17-18 regarding health fund.
6 months.
So now with the reduction in claims and the surplus from February, March, how is that looking? How's the renewal looking?
Unfortunately, like everything else we're doing this year, I don't know, because depending on our grant picture, we get $2.1 million that comes off grants for health insurance. So if there's any movement inside the ECS grant, Priority grant, the Title II grant, there's all health insurance inside all those people. So that could tip the renewal, might not change it that much. I do think the renewal is going to come down. The question is how much, and it's like all things this year, we're not going to know more until we truly set some of those state numbers. Title II, for example, has about $100,000 alone in health insurance inside that grant. So if that grant goes away, that's a piece we've got to balance off. So I do think you've got savings in health going into the budget. How much? I think you've got at least a few $100,000 right now. Right now, the current total increase for health is at $1.5 million. So 6% still a good renewal on claim, but the claim issue has been good, but it really comes down to if there's much shape in that grant number inside that, we'll be taking the total calculation.
you're pretty confident we can roll over that 300,000 surplus though into our cap as far as, we gotta be pretty close to our cap as far as the minimum required,
We have
right?
another 950,000 to go.
Okay,
So we're getting,
so we, you know,
yeah. Obviously, April, May, June are kind of crazy months, because
Right.
as you move towards those deductibles, you can throw off a $2.4 million month pretty easily in any of those months, really. So right now, we've kind of prepared for the worst, hope for the best, that kind of thing. But yeah, it's kind of, you know, all in all, big high claim has not been really bad, so
Right.
all in
okay.
all. Salary accounts are tight, I mean,
Yep.
health is important, but salaries are tighter than they've actually been in my 5 years here.
Any other questions? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any objections, abstentions? Motion carries.
That the Board of Education accept the March 2017 operating results analysis grants and projects in accordance with Article 17-56.
Second by Mr. Ferguson. Any discussion?
Just one note, Mr. Chair, we did finally have our final number on magnet school grant. The state did cut the total grant by 4%. Danbury lost $125,000, so we have that portion to make up. Obviously, in this current budget and obviously going forward. So next year we plan a reduction. This year we didn't plan a cut. So
What had they said? It was more.
originally it's supposed to be about 6.5%, so we should be excited at 4%. But it's about $125,000 total. Also, we've seen some shifting, as the board knows, the demographic there between our out-of-town and in-town, which shifts your tuition rates too. So other than that, all the other grants are solid.
Are we still dropping in out-of-town enrollment there, or?
We haven't had any more elections of reduction of seats that I know of, so that's been okay. But we did increase tuition, the contribution rate about $200 a student, so that'll recruit some revenue. There is an increase, and not tough on there. That's another part of the state budget.
Any questions on that? No? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Any opposed? Abstentions? No? Okay, motion carries. Superintendent's report, state budget update. Is that you or Mr.
Collaborative effort.
Up to you, Michael, if you want to.
I've been sending you stuff and said, Mike will update us, so you know.
It just goes up there and falls into the hole.
No, I read everything, Dr. South says. So basically, this is a very important week at the Capitol. Just to explain, there's two committees that really deal with the budget, the Appropriations Committee and the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. The Appropriations Committee basically passes a budget out of committee, and then the Finance Committee determines how that budget is going to be paid. The Appropriations Committee deadline is 5 o'clock tomorrow, and the Finance Committee deadline is 5 o'clock on Friday. Yesterday, early in the morning, around 10 o'clock or so, the Appropriations Committee convened with a budget that was officially, well, not actually officially called, but put out. The first actual version of an Appropriations Committee budget was put out. The members went into caucus that lasted for hours. Ultimately, they came out, reconvened the meeting, and did not call anything, and actually ended the meeting. So we are in kind of uncharted territory at the moment. It is very possible that the Appropriations Committee will not vote by 5 o'clock tomorrow on a budget. So what does that mean? Although it's uncharted territory, basically what would happen is we would have an ESERT bill, so an emergency bill, it's called an ESERT bill, to present the budget later on in session. So that brings a lot of uncertainty to districts and to towns and cities as well, and just for all of us in the legislature also. I don't serve on either of those two committees, but that's basically where we stand. There'll be, I'm sure, more conversation and developments just over the next 2 days by the end of this week, but we anxiously continue to watch and see what happens. Yeah.
How far can it be kicked down? How far can you kick the can? Does it have to be by, can it be extended for a set period of time, or can it just keep going on continuing resolution?
Session ends at midnight on June 7th, so as soon as the clock turns to Thursday, June 8th, session is done, and whatever bill is not passed dies, essentially. The budget would work the same way as we keep to vote on the budget by midnight on June 7th. However, we can have special session, and when we have special session, it'd be after June, would be after June 7th, to deal with the budget. So fiscal year begins on July 1, so the hope would be that there would be a budget, if not passed by June 7th, then hopefully before July 1. However, there's also an exception to that. The governor can run the state by executive order until a budget is passed by the legislature. And this has happened, about 8 years ago, 10 years ago. Governor Rao had to do that for a couple months. It wasn't until late summer that a budget was actually pushed through.
So that throws everything into complete disarray.
If it gets to that point, it would.
Yeah. Wow.
Not saying that won't happen. The Speaker of the House came out yesterday and said, I'm very confident that it would not come to that, and that actually by June 7th, we'll have a budget voted on.
Who said that, Michael?
The Speaker of the House, Speaker Arsenault. However, in the Appropriations Committee, when they came to reconvene to vote, everyone actually expected a vote on the budget. And so what ultimately happened is the majority party did not have the votes to pass that budget. And like I said, I'm not on either of those two committees, but it brings a lot of uncertainty. Although I would add this, so the governor presented his budget proposal in the beginning of February. Many said it was dead on arrival, that many of his proposals and ideas were not going to be in the final version. But it began, begins the conversation, it begins the process to implement a budget. Usually the next step in that, or a following step to that, would be the Appropriations Committee to present their budget. And then that continues the conversation. And oftentimes the Appropriations Committee budget is not the same budget as the final version that would be passed through the So I bring that up just to say, doesn't mean that because the Appropriations Committee didn't pass the budget, that there is not going to be a budget come the beginning of the fiscal year, but it's uncharted territory in the sense that this has not happened in recent memory, at least, that a committee has not passed out a budget, the Appropriations Committee.
There's some, what did I hear? There's some $400 million disparity between the appropriations tentative budget and the governor's proposed budget.
The Appropriations Committee, so it's interesting, the Appropriations Committee budget as brought out yesterday, it is not really official because it was never called. If you can't find it, it's just a document that was produced for members but was never called. Would that be called tomorrow? Very unlikely. Very. So it's not something you can look and search, because it's not an actual bill number. However, the appropriations proposal that was brought out initially yesterday did increase spending to the governor's proposal from February. That would begin the conversation really in the Finance Committee is how do you make that happen? And that's where a lot of the disagreement is. A lot of it.
Any other questions for Michael? You can stop anytime, Michael.
Okay.
So good?
Unless there are questions.
And not about the state budget, you guys, for us here, the agreement that we've had with the mayor is that we're just, we went to the committee, you all know they approved March budget, so we know we're gonna get, we're okay with making this assumption we're gonna assume that we're getting the Alliance money, at least what we had this year. So we're gonna move forward with anticipated openings and all of that stuff, because we may be the 28th, maybe, when we'll know. And God forbid we have to do something, Kim, we have the right to a process to eliminate positions. But we elected not to do that. So we're gonna assume, we're gonna offer contracts, we're gonna hire, we have people retiring, backfill with those assumptions, and that this will do that with the mayor's approval. So that's the only way we know how to operate for us. So that's what we'll do.
Nice choice, right?
So thanks, Mike.
Yeah, and just, I've said before, I think, and I hate to kind of say it like this, but all signs do point to Danbury probably being okay, maybe not a lot more money, but at least probably keeping what we've had, which might be the best we can restore at this point. So,
And just one other point on that, at least we're talking to lobby stuff there, I think might help me on this, because the appropriations budget is not going to, may or may not get approved, it'll impact the further detail of the town runs and the town breakdowns, at least that's what we're hearing, that our lobbyists are looking into. So that further muddies the waters, even on a guess what you think you're gonna get. But right now, the only breakdown on the town run we have to Danbury is the governor's budget, because appropriations may or may not actually approve, they won't break that budget down or really drill out the ECS or anything else, so I believe it's kind of nowhere for quite a while.
there's no run because there's no bid.
Yeah, there's nothing to run, in a sense.
And it's the governor's proposal, but as I said, that is very unlikely to be the final document. It would come down to the ESER bill if it comes to that, if the budget falls under, which would be right at the end of the session, most likely.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it.
For the board, graduation rates did come out. At the next meeting, we'll have a full presentation. And we're sitting down, we're drilling through the cohorts from 9 to 12, what's happening to students, why the rate is where it's at, and we're looking at comparison. I mean, we have some interesting tendencies, but we'll discuss them in detail at which meeting, Bill? The next one, right? We're doing a report. Dan and Megan will be here as well. Right now, we have the councils. This is the first time we had some comparison stuff because of the way we're doing it. We're looking at students that are there currently and also this graduating class, see what the differences are and what the status is. So it'll be, I think you'll find a real interesting study that we're doing. Administrative vacancies, you did mention it. The only thing I want to add to that, there are some internal requests for transfers that may impact where these are, but we do have 3 principal jobs open at the elementary. And we've decided to do it, as Kim said, and I think, and I appreciate those of you that are giving your time, do it on one day, and then it'll come to a second central office group, and then a cabinet group, and hopefully by June 1st, and thereabouts will happen. Terrific, I didn't mention in my evaluation, but Sandy and her group did get a $200,000 grant for ACE, and they're working on their strategies. There's nothing to do with infrastructure. There's a lot of programs, program outreach, truancy reduction, supporting the programming at the school. So the plan that they've accepted now needs details, and that's what we're working on. But this is a 1-year grant with a possibility of a renewal. Did I hear that correctly?
Pretty much guaranteed renewal.
Guaranteed renewal. So that's good news for them up there, right? So that's terrific. You know, we always saying you're granting grants. And we got him on that's it.
So on for information, there's just some dates. The next graduation was Broadview's a change. So just take a look at that stuff. Any questions on any of that stuff? Just information wise?
We tried to spread them out so we don't have the overlap with the parking and all that stuff. And we went to that later time on Friday to see if that helps out, because we always have the hanger-ons and show up. So we think this should help us.
All right, board chairperson, just Memorial Day Parade, Deb had asked me to ask who plans on participating in the Memorial Day Parade. And she had recommended, because we want to see how many people we get, because
One car that
that is a convertible. And Rich Janelli has one also, if he wants to use it.
Right, you have to go.
Yeah, if not, then we could, get one. But does anybody have an idea how many people probably attend?
Yeah, we'll have the 2 cars.
Yeah, I know.
One, and then we'll rent the other.
What'd you say?
I said, I walked in 2 or 3 years, man, I can't.
We'll have skateboards.
So the last time I walked with you guys, you just,
No, I don't know. We didn't leave you, you stopped, we didn't leave you.
You did,
Yeah.
you did too.
Normal progression of the parade permitted us to keep going, everybody. But, yeah, you, my size, you can't.
How many are gonna, we need 2 cars?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say 2. How many fit, you know?
Show of hands, who's gonna march?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna go, I gotta go, you know,
Two.
I gotta sit in front.
3, 4,
Yeah. I can't sit.
5. Okay. So we'll get 2 cars for sure.
Okay.
The other thing is, yeah,
You're not hanging with us, though.
we'll be at the reviewing stand.
He said you're with us.
The young ladies that won the cheerleaders, they asked if they would want to come, so they'll probably come. So we'll have them. We talked, we have our band obviously, and we also talked to Chip about the athletes, the leadership group might want to also participate. So I think get more students involved.
Yeah, because we kind of wind up like in no man's land. Like we're kind of like here and then everything else is like.
You're an afterthought.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, I don't blame them. I'm just saying that going forward, maybe we can, it's a good idea, get everybody
Yeah,
together.
get as many, we'll see what happens. Last year we didn't have members of Ring, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll get the 2 cars. We'll see if Janelle will give us 6.
Okay. All right. So anything else? Any reports from any members about anything going on or?
No, we had our superintendent evaluation committee this afternoon. I was just looking at my calendar for our next date, and since everyone is here, I need the full board. I'm going for May the 8th at 6 o'clock p.m. That will be our final evaluation of the superintendent.
I think that works. Is that a Monday?
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
6
It's a
p.m.
good number.
Okay, well, you just ask them to send it out, just
Yes,
so people
yes,
will verify.
I will.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper.
I just want to tie the date in there instead of waiting a week or so and everybody's
No,
ready to change.
it's a good idea. Anyone else? Anything going on? Michael, some more updates, anything?
Yeah, quick, yes. The annual scholarship breakfast for GSABC is on Thursday, May 18th. May 18th, 7:45 at the Danbury. And you're all invited as well. Yes.
May 18th, and at what time?
7:45.
That would be AM.
Hey,
Breakfast.
plenty of
Unless we
time.
do breakfast.
Plenty of time.
45 a.m.
All right. Okay, if there's nothing else, I need a motion. Sorry. Yeah, Ms. Howard.
There was, at City Hall, we turned City Hall blue for, Autism Awareness Month. The week that everybody was on vacation. The school district was represented by, Michael and Annie.
Yes.
Was there for her. It was very, it was a very nice event. And, I didn't think there were a lot of people that were there that have contacted me, really got something out of it, which made it forward.
It's awesome. Thank you.
And Eileen won't say, but she was recognized and did a very nice job speaking.
Oh, congratulations.
Did I speak into the microphone?
You did.
Yeah, there you go. Not here tonight, but there you go. That's okay. We love you anyway, Eileen.
Well, maybe I kept putting the microphone like in my face, so it's like really hard to avoid.
Oh, she let someone else off for a second. Okay, good. Okay, if there's anything else, if nothing else, I need a motion to adjourn public session.
Move into recess. So moved.
Second.
So you have to read the motion, Rich has to read the motion to executive session.
That the Board of Education convene into an executive session for the purpose of discussing communications received concerning the performance of an elementary administrator.
Second by Ms. Robinson. So all in favor?
Aye.
Great time. Shannon, thank you again.
Thank you everybody very much.
Thanks.
Have a great evening.
Sandy, would you let